Nope, still 6 o'clock. And I call, yeah, meeting to order. Okay. I call this regular scheduled city council meeting to order. Councilman Price, can you lead us in the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance? Chief, are you going to start this one for us? Make sure your microphone's on, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight it's my pleasure to introduce one of our newest officers, Michael Shaw. Michael, will come forward. We're excited to have Michael on our team. He comes to us as a certified police officer from the East Point Police Department, where he served since November of 2020. And he served in the service and hospitality industry before that. Michael holds a bachelor's degree in sociology from Georgia State University. And you can tell he played football at Georgia State University. I think an outside linebacker, is that right? Yeah. And so, if we ever put a football team together, we're going to be in good position. So anyways, I want to welcome Michael to the department.
Thank you. And we sometimes have kickball games.
Yes.
That he's pretty good at that. I'd like to be on your team, please.
Yeah. By the laws of the state of Georgia. I am otherwise qualified to hold the office of police officer. I am otherwise qualified to hold the office of police officer according to the Constitution of the state. I will faithfully follow the legal rules, regulations, and policies. I will faithfully follow the legal rules, regulations, and policies of the Dunwoody Police Department of the city of Dunwoody. Congratulations. Okay. Seriously. Help us become good heels and decide. I think you have family here, so would you like them up to take a picture?
Just a couple of words when I get back to the microphone. Officer Shaw, we are incredibly grateful that you have chosen Dunwoody. And our community, as you can see here, is incredibly grateful as well. And so please never hesitate to let us know if there's anything we can do. And once again, welcome to Dunwoody and thank you for choosing us. Congratulations. Jennifer, do you know how long the student government presentation is? They're going to miss that whole game because I have what? If I can ask the council for their permission to move the student government's brief presentation up so that they can get to the Elite Eight soccer game that's happening right now. If that would be okay with everybody, I would appreciate that. Council, are y'all okay with that? So if Jennifer, if you want to start that. Mm-hmm.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you all know, the Georgia Municipal Association sponsors Georgia Cities Week every year to showcase and celebrate cities and the role local governments play in enhancing the quality of life for residents. This year, Georgia Cities Week is this week, and the theme is shaping the future. So we thought this would be the perfect time to shine a spotlight on the members of the U City Council, a student club at Dunwoody High School that started 6 years ago. They meet once a month before school to visit with elected leaders and city staff. And this year we've added a little fun by doing presentations using a game-based learning platform called Kahoot.
Mm-hmm.
Here with more is the club sponsor, Mr. Michael Berry.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for having us this evening to introduce us here. My name is Mike Berry. And like Ms. Besser said, we began the club 6 years ago. Pam Talmadge, who is a former council member, came to the school with this idea, and the principal at the time, Mr. McFerrin, asked if I'd be willing to sponsor it. And I said yes, and it's been a very good decision. One thing about local government, and I know you guys know this, is it has probably the most direct impact on your life, but gets the least amount of attention and also the least amount of time in the curriculum. Mm-hmm. So having a local government club at school hopefully gives the students an opportunity to learn more about their local government, learn more about their community, and hopefully become motivated to become more involved and actively engaged in their community. So that's what our goals are for this club. And we're going to continue to keep the club moving going forward. And thank you guys for all your support. Ms. Betcher has been very, very helpful this year. Mr. Hennigan has attended a lot of our meetings as well. He's been very helpful as well. And so we look forward to continuing to I'm going to work with you guys in the future.
Thank you. Yes, we can come down.
There were more, but some have already left for the, they have a tennis banquet tonight, and also the girls soccer team is in the final 8, the Elite 8.
If they win, they're in the final 4.
Okay. And it started at 5:30, so thank y'all for sticking around. We had more members here a little bit earlier for dinner.
Hello. All right, it is time for public comment. Each person has up to 3 minutes. Introduce yourself, please. And I think we're going to get it all in 30 minutes. If you can keep it under 3, we will. We have a large number of public comments tonight. If you can keep it under 3 minutes, that's good too. Robert Wittenstein, and I'm just doing them in the order they are on my desk.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Robert Wittenstein, 1146 Bordeaux Court. I want to start by saying that I see that on the agenda tonight, you're going to be looking at the process by which you could do a bond referendum. And I'm very supportive of that idea. I think for our parks and our standard of living and the quality of life that we enjoy, this is an important thing for us to pursue. But I want to make a couple of other points as well. One, that in companion to this, we need to have some sort of special service district to provide funding for parks operations. The bond referendum will help us build stuff, but we have to be able to maintain it and operate it. And so as we consider what we might do in terms of enhancing our parks from a capital point of view, we also need to be thinking about how we increase the amount of money that we allocate for parks maintenance. I also want to suggest this, that one of the things that I haven't yet seen and that I hope you will do is to take your priority list and instead of just ranking your top 3 or your top 4, to develop short, medium, and long-term goals so that we aren't trying to compare fixing a rotting boardwalk at the Dunwoody Nature Center with acquiring new land for parks, right? These things are not equal. And there are some things we should do in the short term and other things that are aspirational that we ought to be putting on, sort of a longer range timeline. The other thing I would encourage you all to do is to develop or enhance a citywide parks plan. So rather than looking at what should go at Austin or what should go over here or what should go over there, to look at how many pickleball courts do we need and where should they go? How many basketball courts do we need? How many girls softball courts do we need? Softball fields do we need? And where should they go, right? And then again, put that onto some sort of a short, medium, and long-term plan. The last comment I want to make is that you have 2 really energetic partners in the Dunwoody Nature Center and Sproul Center for the Arts. And both of those organizations have committed each $1 million to enhance Dunwoody parks that today are providing the bulk of the services that we provide in terms of programming. I would encourage you to go ahead and leverage those 2 organizations as low-hanging fruit rather than waiting to fund them through some sort of future parks bond or a set. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Susan Mitchell, please. Introduce yourself and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and City staff. I am Susan Mitchell, homeowner in Dunwoody Station Subdivision 4831, Dunwoody Junction. Thank you all, each of you, for your service to our city. It does not go unnoticed that you each give countless hours of your personal time to support and improve our quality of life. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of intentional and intelligent community growth, particularly as it relates to our parks, and specifically in support of future consideration for a bond resolution. There are a legion of motivations for investing in our parks. Parks are the lungs of our city. Dunwoody's variety of parks offer your constituents multiple amenities. Some of our parks are sanctuaries, offering a source of mental and physical well-being with a chance to reconnect with our intrinsic need as humans to spend time outdoors. Others are vibrant centers of recreational and cultural activity. For you financial wonks, according to the Trust for Public Land, parks boost property values and increase sales tax, particularly when parks are activated in such a way as to attract visitors and drive economic activity. The tireless work of your Parks Department over the last dozen years has elevated and enhanced our park system. Close your eyes for just a minute Visualize the buzz at Brook Run on Saturday mornings, the pure joy of attending an evening concert there, the homey appeal of apple cider days at Donald Bannister, the funky factor and artful buzz at Sproul, the gleeful laughter from the playgrounds at Georgetown, the competitive sneaker squeak you hear when you walk past Pernishall, and the serene Eden above it all, the Dunwoody Nature Center. It's obvious we've done good things, but Dunwoody deserves great things. A parks bond would allow a fuller realization of the park's master plan, equipping our city to improve existing assets, build out recently acquired properties at Austin and Vermac, acquire as appropriate additional properties, and continue improvements in connectivity and accessibility. So what do you say? Let's have the political will to get the plan off paper and get shovels in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Bob Hickey? If you'll just introduce yourself and you'll have 3 minutes, sir. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, City Council, my name is Bob Hickey, and I've been a citizen and resident of Dunwoody for over 40 years. I'm here tonight to again talk about the city living within its means. I am not against parks in any way, shape, or form. All I say is that the city needs to live within its means. Last week, I spoke about the same topic, and I was a little off base on some of my numbers. The city revenues in 2009 were about 18 million, which I was used last week, but I used 42 million, which were the city revenues in 2020. As a result of the meeting last week, I now understand that the budgeted revenues for 2022 are about 52 million. And depending upon how the $10 million that was talked about last week for the revenue replacement is fixed, the budget could be over 60 million in 2022. But in any event, the revenue is up over 300% since the city was formed in 2009. To 300%. I doubt if any one of us can say that our revenues have increased 300%. And the city is talking about a tax increase and incurring debt. The city debt is already about 14.5 million, which includes the 5,750,000 that the city incurred to buy the Vermac parkland late last year. Now, let me think about this a minute. We bought the land by borrowing money, and now we're going to borrow more money to build the parks. That's like me saying to my wife, I'm going to borrow money to buy a boat, okay? And then I'm going to borrow money to put on a new garage. I think that would get me talked out of the house pretty quick. So again, my only point is I think the city should live within its means. I'm not against parks. I think the city should set the priorities to include a fair amount of parks, but the city should live within its means. And any expansion of bonds and tax increases, the citizens of the Dunwoody should be given an opportunity to vote on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, wrong way, sorry. Travis Reed.
Good evening, Mayor and
Can you-
Council.
Travis, can you speak into the microphone and make sure the green light is on, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
My name's Travis Reed. I live at 5183 North Peachtree. And this past Saturday was indeed a Chamber of Commerce kind of day. We had lemonade days at Brook Run, went by the Dunwoody Nature Center for a graduation party, and then on to the village for green eggs and kegs. I can just tell you this town was electric, and what struck me was how much everyone was embracing our shared commons like our parks, the nature center, the sidewalks, bike lanes, athletic fields, all of them were filled. I'm here today to encourage the city to continue its ongoing investment in shared commons for its citizens. If green eggs and kegs was a proof of concept for what a shared green space and redevelopment of the village area could provide, then I would put redevelopment of the area village as a top priority. The heart of Dunwoody resides in the village, and if Saturday showed, our town loves to have fun and is starving for culture. Imagine the 4th of July parade concluding in a village green space, hosting a music festival with fireworks through the evening. The possibilities are endless, and we are missing an opportunity to finally develop the heart of our town. I highly recommend a partnership with Ray Agency to redevelop the village so it can live up to its potential of a vibrant city center, complete with shared green space for all to enjoy. I would even go so far as to support a bond initiative that would purchase village parcels to show Regency we are serious in this endeavor. Because if a Jacksonville, Florida-based real estate company was interested in redevelopment, they'd probably be doing it already. But we must take our fate in our own hands, and a redevelopment was discussed in 07 and 08 pre-city steering committees, and the community has shown support in numerous feedback sessions. Now it is time to make this plan happen. Continue to invest in our parks and shared spaces, and this town will continue to flourish while enjoying continued returns on our investment. Pass a bond, build it, and they will come. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tom Taylor, 4926 Four Oaks Court. Come to hear you talk about a couple of things. One is wants versus needs. And I agree with a lot of the development of parks. I agree with a lot of the green space. But a need right now is to help Chief Grogan fill these police positions. Compared to the parks bonds and things like that, this is a drop in the bucket. But right now we are down, I just talked to the chief, about 8 positions, which is about 20% of our force. Ironically, crime has gone up over 20% in this past year in past police report. I would urge you to put some funding into that because parks are a want, police are a need. And when you call 911, you don't expect, what I guess my statement is, when seconds counts, the police are minutes away. And we've had an increase of crime of 20%, according to the police department report. I would urge you to put some money in that. And as the original chair of the police task force when we formed the city, I know from which I speak. And one of the best things we ever did was have our own police force because we did increase stuff, but I urge you to fund that and man it up totally. Second thing is the parks bonds, the referendum, the special services district. Basically, I would urge you to put all that on a referendum in the spirit of our original charter. The charter has not been renewed now in a long time. We had a charter committee chaired by Rob Wittenstein, but that never dropped as legislation. So you're still bound by that, and not just the legal aspects of it, but I would call it on you to look at the principles behind that, which transparency, openness, and allowing everybody to participate in that. And we had a parks bond before when we formed the city in 2010, I believe, that parks bond, that went on a referendum. Some people were for, some people were against. It failed, but the people spoke. I urge you to let them do that again. Thank you.
Thank you. Joan Dwoskin, please. Same thing. You'll have 3 minutes. Please just introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Joan Dwoskin, 5711 Bend Creek Road. So I'm a resident of Dunwoody, and I'm also a member of the Dunwoody Nature Center's Board of Directors. I'm here on behalf of the board tonight to express our support for exploration of potential for a bond to fund park, trail, and green space improvements in our community. I know the city has a well-developed project list that includes numerous projects that will enhance the lives of all the residents of our great city, including projects within the Nature Center. The Dunwoody Nature Center has more than 30,000 visits each year. We provide camps, educational programs for children and adults, field trips for school and scout groups, and outreach programs to area schools. Perhaps you've taken a yoga class or a gardening class, or your child has participated in summer camp, or maybe you've walked your dog on our hiking trails. A parks and green space bond will help us to continue delivering these services to the community and to further expand on our vision to serve as a nature-based enclave for community activities. With creation of a capital prioritization committee, that will help ensure the city funds projects that will serve the community best and will ensure that Dunwoody remains a destination for people and businesses seeking communities that care about the well-being of their citizens and provide plenty of opportunities to enjoy the countless benefits of nature. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Longacre, If I've mispronounced your name, please let me know when you come up.
Good evening. I am Nancy Longacre, Executive Director at the Dunwoody Nature Center. I am here to advocate for the upcoming Parks, Trails, Green Space Bond slated for this coming November. All of you here tonight, the mayor, city manager, council representatives, and Parks Department representatives have put a lot of time and effort into prioritizing a list of projects to be included in this bond package. I am very grateful for the careful attention and thoughtful process of due diligence you are doing to help make this bond and the important initiatives it represents become reality. The Dunwoody Nature Center is included in the overall project list that was vetted by the council with two distinct projects, the Wildcat Creek Learning Lab and the restoration of the wetlands area and boardwalk. I can say to each of you tonight that we are absolutely committed to doing whatever we can to increase awareness, educate, and engage our stakeholders, program participants, donors, volunteers, and supporters to vote in favor of this bond. We will do our part to make this bond referendum a success. Thank you for all that you do for our community.
Thank you. Joseph Martinez, please. And please introduce yourself and your associate.
That's right. That's right. We didn't fill out two separate comment
Right,
cards.
that's
so we'll
fine.
just do one.
You get 3 minutes.
So I'm Joe Martinez. I reside at 5521 North Petrie Road. This is Daniela Martinez. And we have been a Dunwoody resident since she was practically a newborn, since going on 7 years now. We very much support this initiative, and we appreciate every one of y'all's just service to our community. I see a lot of familiar faces here that have been just integral to the success of this community, and they're continuing to build this community up. And that really would just express a ton of gratitude there. So everything we say is from that perspective. Right now, the cost of borrowing is less than the cost of the rising cost of construction. So for example, muni bond rates are 4 to 5%. I think we have pretty decent credit. Construction costs are going up 15 to 20% year over year. So we have divergent curves here. So if you think about waiting, the longer we wait, the more expensive this work gets. It's not getting cheaper. I'm in the development business and I see this every day. One important piece that we do want to think about is that we do quality work with good design and materials, and we have a clear priority list. And I think y'all do. Some of I think that the improvements that we made to Brook Run Park, while fantastic, were clearly executed on a tight budget, and there's some impact there, but I think there's some enhancements that are missing, some of the kind of key placemaking things that could have really created a signature park. I think about the pavilion, and it's a beautiful structure, but then it's backed by cinder block walls. So those are the kind of things that having a little bit more of a pot of money to do would create that lasting sense of place. And also hiring great landscape architects and engineers and designers to really create the places in those parks. We need to support our existing institutions, Dunwoody Nature Center, which other folks have echoed, and Spruill Arts Center, and leverage their operational excellence. And I do mean that. Just case in point right here, she is attending 2 of the summer camps this year at the Dunwoody Nature Center. We need to build multi-use trails and connect our homes with the village, and provide families safe biking routes to go from the parks in our houses to go have lunch and ice cream. These trails should be high on the priority list and should include public art and pedestrian lighting. These are lasting investments that, with God's grace, our children's children will enjoy. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Kurt Murray. And you'll have 3 minutes, and please introduce yourself.
Can I introduce the PowerPoint, or is that going to take up my time?
No, sir, you'll just give us public comment, and if you have something you'd like to be shared with us, you can email it to the clerk and we'll get it.
Okay, thank you. My name is Kurt Maury. I live at 1240 Dunwoody Knoll Drive. And my background information is that I've been a resident since 2001, had 2 kids go through the Dunwoody school system. What I'm here to talk to you today is what has happened in the past, and that's the rezoning of properties 5308, 5318, 5319 Roberts Drive, also known as RZ 20-02. When that was passed, there was a previous effort that was taken to rezone and develop those properties in 2019, which was known as RZ 1901. Was that information shared by your staff as part of their due diligence in providing you the information regarding RZ 20-02? The city council in 2019 allowed Ethan Underwood and Kurt Swilly to withdraw their application to rezone and develop those properties rather than encumber those properties with a locked zoning ordinance for 2 years. In the meantime, elections have consequences. In 2020, Ty White and Robert Miller acquired those properties in order to develop them with a greater density than the previous applicant. The residents of Dunwoody Knoll Drive again let their voices be heard regarding the proposed development. We are not opposed to the development at that site, just the number of homes, also known as the density that was proposed by the applicant. I and several residents surrounding the development appeared before the city council to voice our concerns during our allotted 3 minutes. Robert Miller and Ty White in a city council session stated that they got to spend hours with each one of the council members to garner their support for the development. My specific concern was the drainage from the development affecting the retention pond immediately adjacent to my home. Who would be the responsible party to clean my flooded basement when the retention pond overflowed its banks due to the upstream inflow? No answer was given. No one took responsibility. My concerns were not heeded. I was left to fend for myself. RZ 20-02 was approved by the city council on November 9th, 2020 by a 4-3 vote. Construction did not start for another year until November of 2021. I had slides prepared and I was going to show them to the audience on a PowerPoint, but I will just email them to the council instead. So what has happened in the intervening time, there has been significant construction runoff coming down through the pipes that is now entering the retention pond immediately adjacent to my house and has now turned a lovely shade of Georgia red clay. My concern was then, and it is again today, that this development is not maintaining its current retention system. It's coming down the system, coming to the retention pond close to my house, and I am at risk of a flooded basement that I had remodeled for my parents who are in their mid-80s to live in when they become no longer able to be self-sufficient. So my question then, as it was again today, is the following. Let me flip to that last page as I wrap up here. We talked about where the red dirt was coming from. And so the question is now, when my basement is flooded as a result of the retention pond, who do I call to fix my basement? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the cards we have. There'll be an additional public comment period at the end of the meeting. Thank you. We go on to reports and presentations. And I do not know which staff person is introducing our presentation. Okay, wait a minute. Sorry, let me see. Your card might have gotten stuck. I'm sorry. I see your card, Freeman. I'm sorry. It got stuck. You should have been after Travis. And so Sharon, I'm going backwards. And was there time left? Okay, the gentleman who asked, if you could fill out a card, they're in the back on the music stand, for lack of a better term. Thank you. Bob, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. City
Sorry.
Councilman.
Mhm.
My name is Bob Freeman. I live at 2077 Renfro Lake Drive. I stand before you tonight, an almost 30-year resident of the city of Dunwoody. For the past 15 years, I have served as a full-time residential realtor with one of the top brokerages in Atlanta and in Dunwoody. And this past year, I had the opportunity, a privilege of distinguishing myself as the #1 agent in the office. I say that not to brag on myself, but to say that I have an opportunity in my daily work with individuals, with families, with businesses that are looking to move and relocate. understand their concerns and what they are looking for as they make those critical decisions. Without fail, there are 3 items of concern that are always expressed as they search for that perfect home: traffic, schools, and amenities. Well, we'll leave traffic and schools, easy questions, off the table for the evening. I want to talk about amenities for just a second. When I say amenities, what I'm referring to, most of my clients refer to, are retail, restaurants, and recreation. As members of the city council, you have the power to significantly impact and improve the amenities of our city. As an active runner and a cyclist, I stand here tonight to say I am a strong proponent of exploring the possibilities of issuing a bond to fund well thought out and vetted lists that would improve our parks, our trails, our green spaces in the city, not only for our use today, but for the enjoyment of future generations. I grew up in Roswell. Don White was a family friend of ours. You may know that name because Don has a park named after him in Roswell. I can recall, even at the young age as I was growing up, how amazed I was at what the city was doing for the youth of that generation to prepare and provide places for us, both for then as well as for future development. In Dunwoody, as we continue to grow and mature, it's more important than ever that we plan well for the future. Back in November, I stood at this exact podium before the Zoning Board of Appeals. I know how important it is to invest not just in my home, not to maintain it, but also to improve it. And I'm asking you as our city council to explore ways that we can not just maintain our home, but that we can improve it. We are all good stewards of what's been entrusted to us, and it's important that we make strong investments in the future. Thank you for your time and your service.
Thank you, and I apologize for the oversight. Al, is it McGever? McKever, thank you. And you'll have 3 minutes. Please introduce yourself when you get up to the microphone.
Good evening, council and mayor. My name is Al McKever. I live at, I'm the owner of 4640 Chamblee Dunwoody Road, which is directly across the street from the Georgetown Park on Chamblee Dunwoody Road. We've been under the impression that the design of the DeKalb County Elementary School project is what is shown on the website and on the sign in front of the property. We recently became aware of the city's proposal to alter the school plan and align the driveway with Kent Avenue. As the owner of the most effective property the drawing shows use of my property in this plan, I'd like to voice my opposition to this. This plan would put a traffic light in front of my house. It would also put an 8-foot wide sidewalk and bus and car traffic within feet, I mean feet, of my house, like from here to the window to my house. I've lived there since 1970. This was not in the original plan or in the plan posted in front of the DeKalb school site property now. The traffic and noise would destroy our property for residential use. This proposal by the city to alter the county plan requires a large portion of our lot. At this time, we are not interested in selling this portion of our property. I've emailed with my city councilman today and would like to further discuss this. Could someone please reach out to me and keep me in the loop as to how this plan is proceeding? Thank you.
Thank you. Right, now that concludes public comment. Next up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you may recall, at the last council meeting, you approved and authorized us to enter into an agreement with Davenport and Company for a financial advisory service contract. We're very excited about that and looking forward to working with them and really building a good partnership. As a matter of fact, we have invited them here tonight to give an introduction and overview of the capital planning material that they have. So with that, I will turn it over to them, and let me see if I can pull up the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, fellow council members. This may be the fastest that we've been hired and actually are doing a presentation to our new client. We are very, very happy to be here. I'm going to introduce my partner, Doug Gephardt, who's going to be with me here tonight as well. And I may have him come up as you have questions, things like that. I just quickly going to go through a couple of slides here and introduce ourselves. I'm going to be the team leader. Doug and Ricardo are also going to be day-to-day contacts for you all. And then Christopher Holt is our analyst. Our office is just up the road. Frankly, we're within 10 miles of you guys up in Roswell, so we're not far away. Give you a sense of who we work with. We work with over 60 localities throughout the state. You can see that we're not just in the metro area, but we're up and down and east and west in the state. I know as it pertains to you all, we have helped a couple of your neighbors, Milton, Brookhaven, Chamblee with their very first ever bond rating. So that's something that I think that obviously is going to appeal to you all. One of the things that we're asked to address tonight is election schedule. And so this is very generic. Of course, we're still getting up to speed on what all you're trying to do. But what I wanted to kind of give you a sense of is the steps. The first step is really to come up with the projects that you'd like to finance. And I know that's one of the things you've been talking about. And part of that is actually putting together what we call a plan of finance. How are you going to pay it back? And so that's one of the things that we would be assisting with. Step two is, in order to do a referendum, there are certain things that you're going to have for that referendum. First, the project description. Second is a not to exceed borrowing amount. And it doesn't have to be all borrowed at one time, but you have to have a not to exceed number that you would borrow over time. A not to exceed interest rate, because you don't want to have to come back to the constituents to ask them to authorize that debt again. So we usually set that at a pretty high level. And then a maximum amount of what the principal amounts. Under Georgia law, you actually have to set out the amounts of principal in advance of actually selling the debt that you're going to repay. And then lastly, the final maturity. Are we going to do 5-year debt, 10-year debt, 20-year debt? What is going to be the final maturity? So once you have that in place, you're going to adopt a resolution basically calling for the election. And this is where you would set those items in place. Then it goes to the county, and the Cobb County Board of Registration Elections, they would actually adopt this resolution. And then you start the advertisement process. You've got to submit the call of election to the newspapers. You have it published. You have to have it over a certain period of time. And then, of course, you lead that up to the election itself. Ballpark, you're looking at basically about a 4-month period from at the point at which you need to have your resolution in place to when the election is going to be held. So it is a pretty lengthy process. The next thing that you might ask about, we were asked to address is, okay, so once we have the election, let's assume that it actually goes forward and is adopted. How long does it take to go out and issue the debt? And generally it's about 60 to 90 days. Now there's certain things that we can be doing along with the advertisements and leading up to the election so that we're ready to go quicker if the election is successful. The things that, different steps that we're going to go through, one of the things, while we know a little bit about you, we still have some things to learn about you. We want to do a financial health analysis to find out exactly the story that we're going to end up telling to the rating agencies, how we want to phrase that story, questions that we need to get answered about your health. And there might be certain things that we might want to suggest putting in place. You probably have some financial policies. We may want to add some others, things that we know the bond rating agencies are going to ask for, would like to see, that would enhance getting hopefully the highest bond rating possible. Bond validation process, something that would be handled by your city attorney and legal team. That is basically where you go to the courts to make sure all the legal steps that were necessary were done properly, so that once the debt's issued, you don't have anyone coming and taking you to court saying that it wasn't done properly. Then we're going to be drafting, along with the legal counsel, both our rating presentation that we would put together, as well as a preliminary official statement. That's a legal document that your legal counsel would be putting together. We look at it as the offering statement. That's what, when we go out to the public bid, that has lots of information about the city as well as the project and your financial wherewithal. Then we would actually have rating meetings with the rating agencies, get the ratings back roughly a week later, have the bond sale, and then at that point, you lock in the interest rates and close. So again, it's roughly a 60 to 90-day process. Just to kind of give you a sense of the things, and again, this is very big picture in terms of what are the rating agencies going to be looking at. There are really 4 areas: your economic base, your financials, your debt size, and management. And one of the things that we can actually help with as we're leading up to the process of talking with the agencies is the management side, and that goes to policies and things like that. So that's the area that we can actually enhance the most and very quickly. So finally, as you look at the credit rating scale, of course, our goal is going to be to get the highest rating we can. And we think that's a very possible thing to do, and especially in this environment. A couple of years ago, when the pandemic set in, it might have been a little more difficult to get the highest rating out there because the agencies were so negative on the outcome of the possibility of what was going to happen. But now things have settled out. It seems like all local governments are doing well and have lots of cash. So with that, Madam Mayor, happy to answer some questions.
Thank you. I'll start with Council Member Hennigan if he has any questions.
No, I have no questions. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. And I want to clarify from staff, because there may have been some confusion in public comment. This has to be voted on, right? A bond of, and if we were going to proceed with a bond, Eric, I need you to answer the question. And so it has to, somebody answer the question in the microphone. It has to be, this isn't a revenue bond that we could issue without, we're not discussing a bond that we could issue without voter approval, correct?
That's correct.
Go ahead.
There's only 2 ways. Sorry. One is by referendum, unless you got some kind of lease purchase type program. So I haven't heard the details, but what I think I've heard banding around today is a bond validation through a referendum.
Okay, Eric, Jay, do you have anything to add?
Just all internal discussions have always been with a geo referendum that will have to be taken to the public.
Right, okay, just wanted to be clarified, if we just choose to go this way.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Tom, anything?
No real questions. I appreciate you guys getting in here so quickly. You mentioned it's about a 4-month time frame to get that on the ballot, and so that we've got time to do it, but we don't have time to dilly-dally around. So,
That is correct.
So I appreciate that, and we're looking forward to going through the process.
Anything? Catherine? Stacy? Joe?
Just welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank y'all very much for your time.
Yes, ma'am.
On the consent agenda, I would like on item 9 is an appointment to the Planning Commission, and Miss Elizabeth Shin is here. If you'll stand up. Ms. Shin has a very impressive resume. I hope y'all took time to look at it and study it. And we're very excited that you've chosen to bring your time and your talents to our city where you're a resident, just to be clear, because you have to be a resident. And we're thrilled that you're going to join our Planning Commission as soon as we do the vote. So thank you for joining us today and welcome. All right.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second by Rob. Anybody have further questions or concerns on the agenda? All right, and I also want to thank Sami Orr, who's going to join our Urban Redevelopment Authority, who's not here, but he's going to join. All right, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Sorry, John, we'll raise hands from now on. I kind of forgot. Any opposed? Hearing none. The motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, moving to business items. These are action items. We have a second amendment to purchase and sell agreement with Summit Healthcare Group, Dunwoody LLC, John Gates.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, what you have in front of you today is a second amendment to the Summit Healthcare Group 2021 contract purchase of the 4553, 4555 North Shallowfoot properties. The city council originally approved this contract back in August 2nd, 2021 for a purchase and sale agreement with Summit Healthcare to acquire the city-owned properties. The agreement currently calls for closing after a rezoning approval, which we've received the ordinance on that today. They've given 30 days to close the sale, which would give us a date of April 22nd, since the rezoning was approved on March 28th. Both the city and the purchaser would like to have the closing extended to May 26th. So it would occur on or before May 26th. And everything seems to be working fine, but there are a couple of closing issues that we need to take care of in terms of making sure all of the I's and T's are dotted. So that's where we are today. We don't anticipate any issues. There's no change in the contract itself, which means there's no physical impact. So before I get to the recommendation, are there any questions?
Does anybody have questions, John? Anybody? Okay.
So we're asking that the council approve this second amendment to the purchase and sale agreement for both properties and authorize the mayor to execute the documents.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Seeing none, this is an action item.
Move to approve.
Moved by John. Second by Rob. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I call the question. All in favor signify by raising your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gates, very much. Oh, the next two things are me.
Mayor, the next item on the agenda is creation of a capital prioritization committee, and that is your item, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am. So as we continue the process that we really began a few years ago and are continuing now, and I'm asking council to approve the creation of two committees, of which each of you will be assigned to one. These will be publicly advertised meetings. Agendas will be published. And so one will be to look at the prioritization list we did, and the other is to look at the funding and other funds we may have or have access to, and help us navigate this process where there's going to be some intersection, for lack of a better word, of use of priorities, and also to continue the discussion that we've already begun and that we've asked staff to give us feedback on about, in case we missed anything that was really important. So I'll take any questions and I'll reach out to you and give you your assignment over the next few days if I haven't already talked to you. Anybody have any questions? Like I said, these will be public meetings and advertised. Oh, John has a question.
Yeah, then I have a quick question regarding the prioritization list. Again, there's probably items which are not on the list. What is the task of that committee in the sense of reaching out to the community, adding items, subtracting items, doing things different than what the council has suggested? I guess if that committee, what is the operating procedures of that committee? How would that work?
So we're going to have a series of public meetings that we're going to be announcing the dates relatively soon over the next few weeks, and we will take public input at those meetings as well, probably some vehicle virtually. And but I haven't quite come up with how you're operating yet. Exactly. Go ahead.
I can help a little bit with that.
Okay.
Part of the first introductory meeting for both of the committees will be setting ground rules and operations. And one of them for the capital prioritization is also literally the groundwork that's going to be done. So probably the first meeting will be a very short one that's getting the input from the council members on how to do that. I can even announce 3 tentative dates: May 17th, 24th, and 25th. Locations to be determined until I get all 3 nailed down, but we're going for at least 3 on different sides of town. And part of that will be for the public input process. So it's starting the ground running immediately.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rob.
Just a general comment. I'm fine wherever you want to put me. I just hope you'll, I guess, factor in seniority and geography as you kind of divvy people up. I think that might be important, especially for the capital.
Yeah, no, both
prioritization
of them
committee.
are important and I'm trying to think, I'll double check what
Yeah.
I've already done. I think by accident, that's what's happened.
I'm comfortable. however
I think
things
by
happen.
accident, that's exactly what happened.
I just
So,
think that that might be useful.
thank you. Now that you mentioned that, but yeah. Anybody else? Oh, Catherine.
What size committees
So
are you looking at?
3 people each, 3 council people each.
That's the total committee.
Yes,
size.
it's 3 council people. It's us.
Got
Us. Go ahead, Joe.
So are we, what kind of a timeline, what does the deliverable look like and what does the deadline look like for these committees
At the,
ending finished work?
the finished product, they'll probably work on for at least the next couple of months. The ARP and grant one will probably run a little bit longer than that, but the prioritization one is one in the discussions we've had with geo bond issuance will probably literally hit the ground in May and start rolling into June. So it'll be very fast.
So potentially by the end of June. Okay, all right, thanks.
Anybody else? This is an action item.
Move to approve?
Moved by Tom,
Second.
second by Rob. Any further discussion?
Point of order, man.
We have to
got
do
this.
1 and 1. So, right. So first, Tom's motion was number 12, right. We're first approving the capital prioritization committee. Correct, Tom? That was your motion. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Joe seconded it, right? Rob seconded. I knew. Stop confusing.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Right. Thank you. Okay. All right. So now we've answered questions. If anybody has any extra questions on 13, let me know.
I move to approve the creation of the American Rescue Plan and Grants Committee.
Thank you. A second.
Second.
Rob seconded it. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I'm sorry again, John. We should do hands. That passes unanimously. Thank you. And now we are ready for a presentation on driveways.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, members of the council. So this presentation came at the request of Councilman Hannigan. It is to give an overview over regulations as we have them for residential driveways with a specific focus on gravel driveways. I have this structured as first, give an overview over what regulations we have. Second, just a general kind of pros and cons towards going towards the regulation for driveway materials. 3, like to look at what peer communities are doing in that realm, and then pretty much I will ask for your input on what directions the council wants us to go with this subject matter. So currently for single-family residential driveways, our code is not prescriptive in terms of the materials. We have a section that requires less than 35% of a front yard to be paved, but otherwise our code is silent on the driveway materials, and that is a topic that comes up, occasionally, and especially to our code enforcement division, because some of those examples aren't aesthetically, particularly pleasing. So I have a few examples here for your review. Top right is sort of where it's sort of a midway construction projects where there's a lot of gravel in the front yard. On the bottom, there is sort of an extension to an existing concrete driveway that is done with gravel. But then also the opposite, on the top left, you see the Donaldson Bannister farm, that also uses a gravel driveway and gravel parking lot. So it's, there's some nuance to this topic. Overall, from a residential perspective, the biggest pro for gravel driveways and gravel sort of residential parking areas is the cost. It's substantially cheaper than other options. For concrete, it typically costs, depending on size and depending on, the vendor you're getting, it's typically between like $4,000 and $21,000 for a concrete driveway. For like a typical Dunwoody sized house and a Dunwoody sized lot. For gravel, it's less than that. It's about $1,000 to $6,000. A gravel kind of, some people find gravel driveways aesthetically pleasing. There's a certain sort of rural aesthetic with a winding driveway. Not that we have a lot of these like larger lots where that comes into place, but that there is sort of an aesthetic preference argument to this. A gravel can be pervious, but it really needs to be properly installed and it needs to be properly maintained to maintain sort of the pervious characteristics. Like over time, when it becomes, stuff, debris gets clogged up in it, and when it gets increasingly compacted, it tends to lose sort of the pervious qualities, and then sort of it's less durable than, especially than concrete. So with concrete, you can put a driveway in, and then it stays like in pretty good shape for decades. That's not necessarily the case with a gravel driveway. So you have this sort of, decreasing aesthetic and decreasing functionality over time. Like I'm not going through like each one of these code sections, but they're part of your package sort of, and so I can pull them up if there's any questions. But I want to describe that overall our peer communities are split in this. So we had 4 cities, I think Sandy Springs, we looked at Tucker, we looked at Alpharetta, Brookhaven, that do not allow for gravel driveways. So they require, and there's the language that you see here under point 1, that's sort of pretty typical language. It must be surfaced with a dust-free surface, and then it's often named like concrete, asphaltic concrete, or asphalt. And that's pretty common language for places that do not allow for gravel driveways. I want to pull up Chambly here. Chambly has a different approach, and where they are allowing gravel driveways, but they're creating performance standards. So in Chambly's example, the gravel area must have a minimum depth. So like it's 4 inches in that case, and they are requiring a form of curbing around it. So the material doesn't go into adjacent areas of the yard. So, let's say you have lawn to the left and the right. If you don't have the curbing in, it tends to all merge into one another, where like your gravel ends up a foot to the left and a foot to the right over time as well. Yeah, and those are more or less the 2 options that we are sort of generally, proposing. Like we could either go the direction of, requiring sort of these dust-free driveway materials, so like asphalt, concrete, and similar. Alternatively, like if we wanted to maintain the option for gravel driveways, then we would recommend coming up with quality requirements, that they're built to a certain standard that has to be reviewed, and that would help sort of our enforcement team with a lot of these cases. We propose we would try to be cautious with the exact writing of this. I put some examples down there of things that we probably would want to continue to allow, like on the left-hand side, sort of ribbon driveways where you have, a grass patch in between, something like grasscrete. These are pervious kind of systems that allow for water to infiltrate through the driveway. And then on the right-hand side, pavers. So we would create language that allows for these things continue to be allowed. And then sort of one more point for your consideration, that we do have these we don't have a lot, but we do have these type of commercial structures like the Donaldson Bannister House. So we want to be mindful in whether we apply it to single family only, or we create sort of separate language that applies to properties at large. So yeah, we'd be interested in the direction the council wants to give us, and I'd be ready for any questions you may have.
Great. John, do you want to do we need to leave the presentation up or maybe take it down so I can see a little easier? Yeah, never mind, leave it up. It's fine. Okay, whatever. We'll put it up if we need it. Councilman Hennigan.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Paul, for the presentation. This issue came in front of me due to the fact that a number of single-family residential houses put in huge gravel driveways and was receiving complaints from it. I understand that there's no ordinances on the book that regulates that being installed. There's numerous ordinances on the books as far as the total number of pervious amount of square footage on a lot. And that typically would have limited the amount of driveway that somebody can install. There's one house in Dunwoody that has gravelled a circular lot in the front and has gravelled into the backyard, almost making it look like more like a commercial commercial house versus a residential house. And I'm just trying to look at the ordinances that others have to see what's appropriate. Paul, I noticed that some cities only had it in the front setback and others may have had the entire property. Did you notice that as well? And what's your thoughts?
Yes, some of this I wouldn't focus so much on that. The ordering of some of these was just arbitrary in some way. I would have the same standard. I would suggest the same standard, irrespective of whether it's in the front yard, side yard, rear yard, for any of these things. Like those differences weren't in my mind. They weren't intentional. That was just like the place that they put it at the time.
Okay. Well, I do like the pervious pavers, pervious, things are important for us to have available for those residents that want to put in a driveway. It's good for the environment. It's good for the water flow. I think we want to make sure that we keep that. But as far as the gravel aspect, I would like to explore a change or looking for something to modify to limit the amount of gravel driveways in single family residential would be my recommendation. Roswell looks pretty good to me, but they only have it for frontage versus the side and back. But again, I'm not sure what we need. I wanted to make sure that we did the research and then have a conversation as council. So I'll defer to others, but thank you.
Hey, anybody? Tom, you want to start with you, Tom?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Paul and staff, for putting this together. As John had mentioned, we have had numerous concerns about homes that, because our current code is kind of silent on this, I feel people have taken advantage of a situation, and it isn't really a loophole because there's no loop to go around, but certainly not, I believe, what the intent, and certainly not what the neighbors would like to look at. When you have an entire front yard that's gravel, I think that violates the spirit of the 35% rule with a driveway. And so, since you're just looking for some guidance from the council, I'll just give you my opinions on it. And I don't really necessarily have any questions because you did a good job putting together the presentation for us. Personally, I would be in favor of limiting it to or eliminating gravel as a driveway surface in residential neighborhoods, not necessarily maybe in commercial. I do support keeping those other alternate, the ribbon driveways, the grasscrete, the pavers. I think those are good solutions. There are a lot of issues with the gravel, aesthetics. You can argue about, some people like it, some people don't. But the issue is, I think, are they being installed properly? I mean, the issue goes beyond aesthetics. To me, it's also, I think it's putting an additional burden on our staff to make sure if we're putting in additional standards of certain depth of gravel, hard surface, or containing it with either a concrete curb or some sort of timbers, and then keeping up with the maintenance. Like when it first goes in, it's pervious, but as time goes on, stone gets crushed, dirt gets in there, and now you initially, in essence, have an impervious surface that really doesn't provide any benefit to the environment. And another factor to consider is the noise. Driving on a concrete driveway is quiet. When you gravel driveways are surprisingly loud when a car pulls in the middle of the night. You can hear that in your house. So I think for lack of a better word, protection of the aesthetic standards of our residential neighborhoods, I think I would be in favor of removing gravel as an allowable driveway surface. I would certainly be open to discussions on applications in commercial because I don't want to have unintended consequences. I don't know what those would be, but I would like it to be clearly defined. Yeah, but I do believe that currently just basically people don't want to put in a driveway, so they just throw a bunch of gravel in their yard and park additional cars on it is not what we want to be having in the residential neighborhoods. So that's my 2 cents.
Rob, anything?
So from what I'm hearing from Paul and Tom so far, and I kind of agree, it sounds like you kind of have 2 issues here. One is the amount of coverage for gravel or concrete, and then the second is the materials themselves. And I'm definitely in favor of limiting the amount of coverage. I don't have a strong opinion yet on whether gravel should be allowed or not allowed. I think I would need to think about that and talk to some citizens about that a little bit, just because, you know, it's the idea of, do you have control over your property or not? For an issue like this, there's aesthetic reasons, but at the same time, maybe a homeowner has a good reason for why they need gravel. And I wouldn't want to necessarily eliminate that out of, you know, outright without some thought at least. So this is some good stuff to think about. I don't know that I've shared anything particularly to add to it, just kind of my thoughts after initial review. And I'll think about this some more, and I'm sure we'll see it coming forward later in the year.
Catherine?
I've got gravel areas, just bedding areas in a backyard, and it washes away. And on a bigger scale with a gravel driveway, it's going to wash into our sewers. So I am in favor of disallowing gravel driveways. And I also think giving guidance with options like this is going to be better for us as a city to provide pervious options. I think I would have done a ribbon driveway if I'd ever heard of it. So if we were to put this forth, this is an opportunity for us to educate citizens on options that are better for the water than masses of concrete, which they're going to have trouble getting now anyway, because there's a statewide shortage. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to change the landscape for the better. I would also stick to residential, not having looked into Bannister, and I'm sure that's a cost issue, but if what we're looking to address is residential. So I would suggest we limit and scope what we're doing.
I just want to kind of tag on to a couple of what my fellow council members have said. I actually have to park in a gravel driveway every day, and it absolutely does wash away. And to have it required in the code to have it maintained 4 inches deep, we're just asking more work for staff. I find it unnecessary. So I'm with Catherine. Like, I also wish I had known what a ribbon driveway was. I mean, again, an opportunity to provide more alternatives to our citizens and what else is out there. So I am, no to gravel, yes to providing options, but I just want a clarification. All the existing gravel driveways in Dunwoody would be grandfathered. So how and when is it triggered?
Yeah, that's correct. So we wouldn't get at the existing driveways because they were legal at the time, they were installed. So it would be anything new, like anyone who now wants to dump like a load of gravel pretty much in their front yard, they wouldn't be allowed to do that anymore after the time this becomes active.
Is there a point, let's just say one of the houses with a gravel driveway wants to undergo a massive renovation. Does that trigger it?
Yeah, generally, like if someone, like the clearest example is if someone tears down a house and then puts up a new house, that there's a certain value proposition. I want to say it's 50% of the value of the structure, and then the entire lot has to be brought into conformance. So there are these thresholds, but I think a lot of the driveways are either sort of failed project where someone had like this grand idea what they wanted to do and then they didn't get there, or someone died midway, or there's a sort of a mental condition like that's honestly like more often than not sort of the issue at hand, and those we wouldn't get with something like that.
Hey, Paul, you might have to stay up there. Can you put back on the slide, that last slide? I want to ask a couple of pictures there. I want to make sure I know what I'm talking about, if you don't mind. The last one that showed the examples.
This one here?
Yeah. Can you just do full screen or Zoom, whatever? It's good enough, I suppose. The one on the, as we look on the viewer side, the lower right, what is that one called? You know,
just like generally pavers, like
Pavers.
it's kind of stone paver.
right. So I had my driveway repaved with concrete at the beginning of 2020. It's $9,000, no, about $8,000 for, I don't know, from here to the, I don't know, entryway foyer. I actually had the guy quote me, but I didn't go out and bid a lot of people, but at the very end of my driveway, it's kind of flat. And then there's a low runoff and there's a stormwater drain, French drain. So I was like, hey, maybe try to do pervious at that bottom flat part, maybe just like 10 feet deep, 20. It's gonna be another $5,000. He had to go way down, do all the structure and everything. And so part of me, of course, I live in an HOA, was maybe I just don't do anything, just make it grass. But I didn't. I could have probably gotten away with that. But it's super, super, like way more expensive to do something on the right
Yep.
than it is just to pour concrete.
Yep, absolutely.
Right.
And then it gets, the regular stone pavers are one thing, but then the sort of pervious paver systems.
Right.
And then you have to have a engineered sort of underbase.
That's
that
what
goes
he
with it.
was. Yeah, I think that was what I'm talking about, because you got to go down and do all these kind of layers to let it filtration. So it's really, it's a great idea. I love it. I also have to have an ROI as well, but I'm a big, environmental sustainable person, but the cost was a definite concern. Look, I'm into sustainability, and we know, concrete is a huge CO2 emitter, third ranking source of CO2 in the world after transportation and energy generation. I agree. I believe I would like to hear how we can reduce the size of that less than 35% of street yard. How can we tighten that? Are you going to be actually looking at that as well in this process?
So that I wouldn't make it part of this process, because what we're trying to get at here is just like this specific problem. If that's sort of the wish of the council, we can certainly look at that. In practice, because Dunwoody has typically like 35-foot front setbacks, we don't have this the same way as cities with larger lots have, where you have these big circular driveways or you have parking pads out front. Like in most Dunwoody places, we're not really getting close to the 35%, but we'd certainly be happy to look.
So I think I'll restate the question. So basically, the people that are getting the loophole, you say that doesn't exist, but it does if gravel is not considered a driveway. And so they're currently much greater than 35%.
And we wouldn't allow we wouldn't allow any cost to be parked on that, which is typically what why the people put the gravel in there, because they want to park cars in the front yard. And then our code enforcement team could go out and tell people to move the cars off the gravel, because it's not an approved
Right.
driveway and parking.
So a couple of nuances of the fine tuning of the redefining the word paved area, right? So maybe you remove the word paved area and you substitute with, what does that truly mean, right? What's the intent of that? You guys legal, right? Figure that out. And then potentially I'm just going to keep an open mind here. I go over to Roswell and Canton Street, and you go to places like Table in Maine, a few places, they have a very, very nice, very well maintained gravel. It's pea gravel, but it has all the buffer and stuff. And actually, when I roll into it, I'm like, oh, I'm in an old world and it's nice and but anyway, whatever. And then you go to the valet and then you go have a nice meal. There you go. But potentially, again, I'm just trying to keep it very flexible as well. If there were any considerations of retaining any type of gravel of whatever the highest standards could possibly be, and or an additional permitting process, right? That they just can't do it by right. If they could come forward and show all how they're going to do it, and they would pay for the administrative fees that would go along with that if we were to, but that's just me stating the idea, but anyway. Thank you for bringing this forward. And then the next steps would be going to the planning commission, assuming, is that what would happen here?
I think probably, but let's see. I'm not 100% sure we've given such clear, so let me wrap it up
Yeah,
this
sure.
way.
Okay,
All
thanks.
right, so I have some, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I just had a couple other things that popped up from some of the other comments. So to Stacy's point about grandfathering in, I presume since our code is currently silent on this, a lot of the violators are concrete driveways, and they've just thrown a bunch of 57 stone on the side to park additional vehicles. Is this a gray area or a black and white area as far as would that be grandfathered in as allowable, or because they already have an existing concrete driveway, that gravel would no longer be allowed?
So we looked at that from an enforcement perspective, and we came to the conclusion that we don't have enough to go after those people. So in our mind, sort of when we looked at that from an enforcement standpoint, we made the decision that it is sort of legal enough, and that so it would have to be, it would have to remain under something like this too. So like this change alone wouldn't change that determination.
So there would be a,
Can I jump in on this?
Absolutely,
one?
yeah.
I'll try not to say too much because he's done an excellent job. So I want to be cautious about this, but I'm going to say this generally to get us on the right track here. Grandfathering is whenever your code specifically vests a right that used to exist that no longer exists in the future. Most codes don't address that issue at all, but there's a new concept, and I say it's new, it's not new, that's litigated. It's called vested rights. And that's whenever I have a right to rely on what existed at the time I constructed and a right to maintain it, et cetera. So, in my view, you run into, I think it was said earlier, something about what is the property rights? Where do they run into the code? And usually there has to be a reason for the government to go back. Somebody asked, what about when they redo it? So Richard, I don't know if your team, but when do they have to come get a permit is sort of the trigger for when you can weigh in on what can be there. When there is no requirement to get a permit, if I want to build a pit in my backyard, you're going to get in a lot of skirmishes if you don't think comprehensively about the development of the plot. I think this is great, but I think it actually coincides with when are the other times that we have a right to inspect and require something on the development of a residential lot or a commercial lot. And so I think the picture is not just sidewalks, what types, is if you're going to get in the intervention mode of what's already there, you got to look at when do you have a right to get in there. So I'd be very careful because the concept of vested rights has taken a hold in the courts pretty hard. And whether your code allowed for grandfathering or not would be irrelevant if somebody's got if I relied on the code at the time I put the driveway in, crush or run, whatever it was, I got a right to rely on it to maintain it, I believe, until I do something that triggers government intervention by virtue of a permit. And so, Richard's team can probably address when do we have a right to go on somebody's property and inspect it. It's usually tied to the permitting of a pool or construction or renovation or those kind of things. But I think the carve out would be the maintenance of what already exists, which if we don't have a right to inspect it for maintenance purposes, then we don't have a right to change it, if that makes sense. So that's sort of where the line is.
Okay, no, that makes perfect sense. And so I'm going to use a particular picture that we saw as a segue into my next thing, because it kind of straddles the line between both items. The one home where the entire front yard is 57 stone. I mean, can we define that as a driveway? I mean, and is that allowable? That seems like a stretch of any reasonable definition of a driveway, to have an entire front of your home be gravel. And I don't know if that is allowed or not. And then, so that gets into the next point of unintended consequences. I want to be careful that whatever we do, if we do decide that we're not going to allow gravel driveways, that we clearly define what a driveway is, so that if somebody wanted to put a gravel, to use stone as mulch around their planting beds, or to have a gravel patio to put furniture on, I would not have an issue with that, with those uses of gravel. It's just the issue of using it as a parking area for motor vehicles. But then again, phrasing that appropriately so that we're not creating loopholes for people that can say, oh, that's a patio and they're parking their pickup truck on it. So I know there's no easy answers to those questions perhaps, but those are concerns that I have. So thank you. And I'm sorry, Linda, just a few things popped up.
Okay, Paul, I have a couple questions that probably need to be answered on the microphone. So one is a statement. So regardless of what we do about commercial properties, if we're requiring it for homeowners, we have to fix it at Donaldson Bannister. And that's us, that's the city park. So it's just my perspective is we don't have rules for thee and not for me. And so we can't, which is just, it's really neither here nor there. But it's in a neighborhood, we want to give the same consideration to its neighbors if we think it's a negative. So it's not really a big deal, but that's just, I'm telling council what I think. So like the example in the picture, is that allowed that the whole yard is gravel?
So it's not prohibited. You have these different things, that it's tough to get at. Like
Okay.
the gravel could be a sort of a rock garden. It could be sort of, some people have like a paved area that they're using for whatever purpose, and some people just more or less, I mean, I don't want to be mean-spirited,
Right.
but just dump a bunch of gravel.
Right.
And
Right. So one of the things that I'm curious about is I think these examples are not the best example of this, is some people get cited by the city for parking on grass. And so they come in and they dump gravel. So, and that's kind of a loophole, but and I think what I understood you say is that because of how our houses are designed and Dunwoody and our lot size, no one's hitting the 35% rule, correct? So
yeah, that's rare.
so, but we could check, right? So like 35% is the most it can be non-pervious.
Paved right now. Like
So we didn't define it right. Or
it's defined kind of, but it's not clearly defined. Is what it comes down to.
Okay. All right. So my question for, so the people, so, but we could check, right? I mean, we could look and say is gravel considered pervious or non-pervious? Is non-pervious or is it pervious or it's just?
We would, so I mean, it can be either or. We generally consider it as non-pervious.
Okay.
Because that's what it mostly ends up being.
Okay.
I think, Mayor, the rock, depending upon what it's mixed with, becomes pervious or impervious,
Mm-hmm.
depending on how it's laid down.
Yes. And so I think that, so one of the things that makes Dunwoody different than some places is we don't have a lot of new development. But I think we have to put rules in place to define what our expectations is and then figure out what those look like. And so, yeah. And so are we clear enough for you tonight to walk away with some sense of guidance?
Yep. So I think what we would probably do is like write up an ordinance that does not address that prohibits gravel. I think that most
I think there
people-
was some consensus around that.
And then sort of if it is the desire of the planning commission to weigh in some way or another,
Right.
they will make themselves known. And then if it's the desire of the council to change that at the time it comes before you all, then.
Would it be easier for you to bring it to us one more time? Or what do
No,
you
I
think of the
think-
planning?
think-
Okay,
Yeah, I think
that's
I'm good.
fine. And then, okay, Joe, go ahead.
If we do go with the non-gravel allowance, could we consider a reduction in permitting costs or whatever if people choose the more of a sustainable route because they're paying more for that versus concrete?
We could, but
Some kind of a carrot.
Okay.
It gets deep. Like what there is a carrot kind of for lot coverage because there's lot coverage requirements on every lot, and we don't count pervious towards the lot coverage. So that's how we get people sometimes, that want to build a large pool and a large but like, hey, you have to trade 1 for 1 and then we get pervious pavers or something like that.
If we can just kind of highlight that that's an option for folks out there, that'd be good to know, just for public education too. Thanks.
Anybody else? John, do you have anything else? Okay, so thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Lynn, one more thing. I will say that the Donaldson Bannister House is zoned R100, would be subject to single-family residential.
Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Thank you. Plus, no rules for thee if not for me, so. Yeah. I'm sorry, one other question, and probably someone up here can answer it. We're not saying in this that you can't use like the pervious pavers, right? We're just saying you can't use gravel. Okay, thank you. Come back, Brent.
I didn't know if you're going to introduce me, Sharon.
I'm sorry. I'm not always so great at remembering that. Brent Walker, could you please introduce the next item on the bathrooms at the park, at Waterford Park?
Yes, ma'am. So this evening, I included quotes and a example photo of the bathroom we are looking to install at Waterford Park. As y'all know, when we purchased that property, we made the seller homeowner association, or the Waterford community, when they sold us the property, they put some specifications in the purchase and sale agreement. And one of those is that a restroom would be built within 5 years of the purchase. We closed that property in November of 2019. So we're a little bit ahead of the game, but as y'all know, it is a very well utilized park and it needs a bathroom facility in a bad way. So I had my staff reach out and we did got some quotes from selected vendors and also from CXT Incorporated, which manufactures a cast concrete bathroom, which is identical, well, not identical, but the same product that we have at Brook Run Park, currently in the new parking lot for the event lawn. The one that we are speccing for Waterford is also the same unit that we would be putting in at the park at Perimeter Center East, is their Denali. And there's an example of that on the second page of your packet. We went ahead and got the utility install cost also from our plumber, electrician, and from concrete installer. And basically you set the utilities, you pour a concrete pad in a specific location. They come with the unit restroom with everything included, and they set it with a crane on the pad and you hook up the utilities and it's done. So it's a very simple process once you have the utilities installed, and it's a very economical way of installing a restroom. So with everything being said, with all the cost of the restroom facility and the utilities to be installed, we're looking at a total price with a contingency of just shy of $145,000 for the unit, which is a very good price for a restroom facility. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions y'all may have.
I have a question. Do we get the snow with the Denali? Sorry. Okay. And then my more serious question is I didn't see a bid sheet. So how did is this a approved contractor from the state or something?
Yes.
Okay.
They actually, CXT has a contract through Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing.
Okay.
And they're one of those conglomerate, or not
Okay.
conglomerate, but consortiums.
All right.
They
Well,
also do have a state contract for Georgia State Parks also.
Okay. I did ask the question probably everybody wanted. Sorry about the snow. Tom, anything?
Excuse me. Yeah, just real quick. Thank you, Brent, for putting this together. Yeah, getting the bathroom there. No reason to wait to 5 years. The sooner we can get it there, the better. It's a good thing to have a restroom in a public park. I did have one question looking at the fixtures that are on the contract. I don't know if this is something we do or not do, a baby changing station. Is that something that do we have a policy on those in our public restrooms in the parks?
We don't have a policy. We typically install them as part of it, and we can put one in with these. It doesn't come with it, but that's something.
We could just do that after the fact, yeah, because I noticed that was missing, and that's obviously parks will attract young kids, and we want to make it as easy as possible for the parents to take care of that part of that business. So, all right, thanks. That's all I have. Thanks, Brent.
Anybody else have questions? It's easier for me. John, anybody? Go ahead.
I just want to make the comment that CXT is actually from Spokane, Washington, and I swear I've been in a park that had that, like this my parents.
Right.
I recognize that size. What's the time? What's the turnaround? Like once the contract is done, what's the turnaround and how long will it take?
I don't have a timeline yet for the delivery of the unit because with concrete, where it is right now, you can imagine there's a little bit of slowdown. We can get the utilities and all that installed within a month after y'all approve it. I'll bring it back at the next council meeting and we can go ahead and pull the trigger on that. Fortunately, there was a restroom there. So we're hoping that we can utilize the existing water line, waste line. There is a water meter there. There's already a lot of infrastructure we're going to tie into. We're going to place it almost exactly where the former bathroom building was. So that shouldn't be a problem. We've already had CXT come out and site the installation with the crane to make sure it could fit.
Yeah,
All that's been
That
laid
was
out.
gonna be one of my
So
questions.
I will, when I come to the next meeting to get it approved, I'll try to see what the timeline is for delivery.
Okay, Joe, anything?
Well, how much snow can the roof hold?
It's all concrete, the entire thing's quite a lot.
You just
Um,
wanted to get in on the snow discussion.
Is this the same, like over at the nature center? That's kind of maturing. That's one of our older restroom
It's older for
facilities.
us,
That's
yes.
been in a lot of use, you kind of start to see the internal wear and tear, kind of, is it starting life cycle replacement? Is it the same type of, is that the same?
No, that facility was built on site with traditional construction means. This is identical to the one that we installed at Brook Run just a couple of years ago.
Okay.
The entire thing is concrete, the roof, the walls, everything inside of it, except for, of course, the fixtures, but it is cast in whatever texture you want. You can get it in whatever color, stone, board and batten, whatever. But it is incredibly resilient, especially for a public facility.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Consent? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Michael Smith with the West Side Connector project update.
All right. Is it showing up as a slideshow yet?
But it's showing up, not.
I have it up.
Got the screen shared. But
in the slideshow from beginning, no? We are all helping. All right, don't know why that wasn't coming up. So the purpose of the discussion tonight is to provide an update on what was previously been referred to as the West Side Connector project. When the Ashford Dunwoody diverging diamond was built with the support of the Perimeter Community Improvement District, it was intended to be an interim project until the longer range complete rebuild of the Ashford Dunwoody interchange was done. And I would say Michael, is your microphone on?
the green light's on.
Okay, that's
Maybe I
fine.
get a
Just
little-
make sure you're talking to it.
Okay. I'd say that the Virgin Diamond has done a pretty good job. It's in its ability to handle the traffic, but in the future, it's projected that it will start to degrade as far as traffic operations sometime towards the end of this decade. Just the West Side Connector is one of the ideas that to further extend the life of the interchange. And just to refresh everybody on the concept of the West Side Connector. It's a zoom in here. It's proposed as a additional lane off the Ashford Dunwoody ramp. This is 285 here in the gray and purple, and the black is a widening of the Ashford Dunwoody westbound off ramp that would then go up over Ashford Dunwoody Road, behind the Rooms to Go Shopping Center, and ultimately tie in where Gold Kiss Drive is on Perimeter Center Parkway. One of the challenges with the interchange is the proximity of the Hammond Drive intersection, and you get a lot of weaving, a lot of merging, cars going north, trying to get over to the right to go to Ravinia, and then other cars getting off 285 West and trying to immediately get over to the left to go turn left on Hammond Drive. So there's a lot of merging there, and then just the proximity of Hammond Drive and the amount of traffic there, it directly affects how the diverging diamond operates. And with all the development that's been happening around the Dunwoody MARTA station, it's expected that the traffic on Hammond will continue to grow, and so there's just going to be more demand for that left turn, and so a better connection directly from 285 to that area would help with that. Would cut down on the merging and also help improve that traffic flow at the interchange. And when we first proposed this project, there was also a return ramp from that area onto 280 to get back on the 285 West, but that was something that the GDOT didn't think would work real well, and so they weren't really crazy about that. But a couple of things happened after the initial concept for the project when we started coordinating with GDOT and their 285 top end managed lane project. And what we found that project's going to take up most of the remaining area in the interchange in the existing right of way. And so we had to push our ramp further north, more onto the Ravinia property out of the right of way. And then also Ravinia brought in a proposed development, and that was going to use all the land that they have there at that corner. And so there was we were kind of squeezed on both sides, and there was nowhere for the West Side Connector to go. Around that time, GDOT did approve our concept, but it became pretty apparent that the pending development of Ravinia was going to make the right of way very costly to try to implement that. So at that point, the city and the PCID partnered to look at other options for accommodating the future traffic at the interchange. And though the improvements may not occur for many years, it's important. We think it's important to look at them now so that GDOT's managed lane project can account for those, and that we don't get boxed in and not be able to do anything in the future if we choose to. So the PCID contracted with KCI, engineering firm here in town, and we take a step back and look at the whole area around the interchange, and especially where there's been a lot of development activity. And in that process, it kind of confirmed that Ashford Dunwoody, that Hammond Ashford Dunwoody segment and the interchange itself is really the critical link for the traffic flow in the area. The project team evaluated over 10 different ideas for relieving the traffic in the area, everything from new exit points to even a 2-level interchange at Ashford Dunwoody Road. And after looking at most of the ideas were eliminated because they didn't provide enough traffic improvement, or because they had significant undesirable impacts to private property, adjacent properties at the interchange. So after looking at that, really narrowed it down to two alternatives. One alternative is a new bridge and entrance on the 285, just to orient everybody. The mall is on the left side of the picture there. Ashford Dunwoody is at the top. And this orange line here would be a new bridge over 285 west of Ashford Dunwoody.
So where's the other new bridge, the last new bridge? It's just not on this picture?
But the Perimeter Center Parkway, yeah, you're talking about Perimeter Center Parkway? Yeah, it's off the slide to the bottom. So this would be between Ashford Dunwoody and Perimeter Center Parkway. This would be the existing interchange at Ashford Dunwoody Road would basically remain the same in this alternative, except that the northbound, if you're going north across the bridge, going on to 285 west, that movement would be taken out to help the interchange work better. And what you would have to do is you would turn left off of Ashford Dunwoody on the Lake Hearn and go over and go across the bridge and then loop around to get on 285. So there'd be a pretty significant change in traffic patterns. And you can see that there's a significant amount of right of way that would be required on the Brookhaven side of 285. It wouldn't really impact any of the existing buildings over there. But on our side, you know, it could affect the future development of the Gold Kiss, what was known as the Gold Kiss site, and some of the buildings planned there. The other option is again, the mall is to the left, 285, Ashford Dunwoody's kind of in the middle, the existing interchange in the middle there. This option would just be to add another lane on each side of the bridge. It wouldn't involve widening Ashford Dunwoody. It's more just at the interchange, having an additional lane for the traffic going on and off 285. It also shows proposes a parallel non-motorized transportation bridge. So a bike and ped bridge in orange there to the west of Ashford Dunwoody towards Perimeter Center Parkway. Comparing the traffic improvement of the two options, they both provide traffic improvement at the interchange. The new bridge would be a little better in the AM peak hour, and widening the existing bridge would be a little better in the PM peak hour. The widening option requires less right of way and would be less costly, assuming that the existing bridge does not need to be completely rebuilt. Now, talking to GDOT, they've suggested, because parts of the Ashford Dunwoody Bridge are 60 years old, that we may want to go ahead and replace it. In that case, the cost of the two options would be similar, but in a way, I look at the cost of replacing the Ashford Dunwoody Bridge is in a way a sunk cost, because whether we did this project or not, sometime in the near future, that bridge is probably going to need to be replaced. So, in conclusion, we wanted to share this update and get your feedback on the direction we're pursuing. There's going to be a similar presentation to the PCID board Wednesday, giving them an update. And, a lot can change when you're trying to project out a decade into the future, but based on what we know now, we think it's important to have GDOT plan for what we think will be needed long-term at this interchange.
Okay, I'm sure we have questions and comments. I'm gonna start with mine, just real quick. One of my questions, the GDOT. So if the bridge had to be replaced just because it was old, that's GDOT, right? That's not us.
Yes, and really, any of these concepts,
We have to get
significant costs, we would have to get GDOT participation.
Okay, I was
Federal
just-
money. We wouldn't be able to afford this project by ourselves.
right. Okay, I'll start with John because otherwise I might forget he's there. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, Michael, thank you. I'm looking at a blow up of with the widening of Ashford Dunwoody. The way I'm looking at it, I see right now that the pedestrian seems to be down the middle still, but you added the additional orange one at the bottom. What's the thoughts on pedestrian? Would the middle no longer be used? It would just be the orange at the bottom?
I believe the idea is that you keep the one in the middle because if somebody was on the east side of Ashford Dunwoody, they may just, if they're walking, it would be easier for them to go through the middle than to cross over to the other side, but that the new bridge would be wider than that existing walkway, and it would basically be a shared use path separate from the existing bridge.
Okay. You mentioned the coming westbound 285, getting off at Ashford Dunwoody and turning left onto Hammond is a huge choke point for us. But I'm trying to see if there's any improvement in the sense of the turning. I guess maybe just the alignment is a little better. What's the improvement on turning left onto Hammond?
If you look closely there, we are trying to make that a little better. We'd be adding a lane on that off ramp so that you'd have the far two left lanes would kind of feed you directly into those turn lanes for Hammond.
Right.
And if you wanted to go north on Ashford Dunwoody or go to Ravenny, you'd stay over in the right lanes, and that would kind of feed you more into Ashford Dunwoody northbound. We'd have to add signage and try to get people in the right lanes as they come up to the intersection, but the idea is to get people sorted into those lanes before they make the turn.
All right, and looking at the ramp westbound 285, I guess looks like all the lanes are used. I liked looking back a couple slides, looking at your plan for the new street, basically a crossover, exiting 285 and going straight towards the Gold Kist. Long term, I think a plan like that might be beneficial both for the Gold Kist properties that are going to be developed highly, and someday, Best Buy might be an office tower. So I'm just trying to think, does it make any sense in the sense of trying to add that, or the thoughts of that throughput instead of trying to go back onto Hammond and around?
Are you talking about one of these where it says with new street here?
Yes, yeah. If you look at traditional diamond with new street, but yeah, the new street, if you were to come off 285 and maybe do a bridge a little over 285 and, go behind the Best Buy, long term, I think that would be an awesome improvement besides the throughput on Ashford Dunwoody that you have on the, number 10. But that's just me. I'm sure it's a lot of money, and I'm sure it's, it may not be part of the plan long term, but I think for traffic flow 10 years from now, we would be better served doing that sooner rather than later.
We looked at that, and if you want to go into detail, I may have to get Andrew from KCI to come up and talk about that. But those options there, you have to add another leg to the intersection, and so from a signal standpoint and traffic operation standpoint, it becomes more complicated. And I think they found that it didn't really improve traffic flow. But if you want more information on that, I can get Andrew up here.
Yeah, I was just thinking long term for both the Gold Kist and that whole section, trying to keep people off Hammond, exit 285 and put them into where they want to go, as well as the bridge that crosses over there by the Marriott. That whole section might keep traffic off Hammond, which seems to be problematic for us. But just ideas, just a thought. I have no questions. It looks like, so your recommendation is to go with number 10, the bridge widening on Ashford Dunwoody?
Yes.
Yeah, I have no questions otherwise, but just giving you my thoughts on that additional throughput for the maybe a street that goes over and then adds and goes into the Gold Kist. But I have nothing else. So thank you for the information.
Anything? Sorry, I should probably.
Thank you. And thank you, Michael. So I guess I just want to start, is that initial concept, that was the first slide. Is that, I know we've got the living spaces furniture going in on that corner now. Is that completely dead in the water? Is there any way to work with, as you talked about, like maybe stacking the lanes to get across? Because looking at all of the options, to me, that just seems to be in my opinion, I'm not an expert, but just the best by far solution to get those cars off that ramp across Ashford Dunwoody, avoid Hammond altogether. You know, as we've talked about, we've already got existing development there with State Farm and 1224 and you know, and the MARTA station and High Street's coming online and Campus 244 and Trammell Crow's got another building being proposed right there in the corner of the Marriott site. So getting the cars off the highway, avoiding Ashford, Dunwoody, and Hammond completely and getting them over there just seems to me to be the cleanest way to handle that. So is that completely dead? Is there any wiggle room?
Yeah, I mean, the challenge is, you know, if we go with the concept of going over Ashford Dunwoody Road, there's no way to stay off the Ravinia property. And so we not only have to buy the land, which is expensive, but we'd end up paying for the loss of their development rights, which get really expensive. You know, at one time we considered going under Ashford Dunwoody, but then again, you would have to go under their development, which would probably change the cost of their development because then they would have to, you know, be able to span over that tunnel. We'd have to get easements for that. So that would be complex. And then one of the reasons we went away from going under Ashford Dunwoody originally is that there's also rock that we would encounter when we got that deep to go under, probably similar to the rock that they've been blasting out on 285 for 3 years. So I think it would be, nothing's impossible, but it would be very difficult and expensive.
Yeah, because I mean, I know obviously the big part of that's that the main part of the corner right there in Ashford Dunwoody where the exit ramps come off, and that's where and they were building that building pretty close to the street there. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there. But if it helps at all, keep in mind, I think as part of the conditions that easternmost portion of that lot, which is basically got a hill and it's wooded, we do have easement grants granted to us as one of the conditions to use that space. So I don't know if it helps, but when I was looking at that, I guess when I was going through all of this, I was thinking that was the like we're going that I was all excited about it because another part that excited me about it was the bridge over Ashford Dunwoody and the multi-use trail there, because as you know, we've been talking about a trail east to west through the city. And that would be a huge connection point getting safely across Ashford Dunwoody and then connecting kind of into the Springwood connector behind the State Farm, which could take you to Path 400 down to the Beltline and all of that. So I would, you know, that would be, you know, a home run, and it also connects easily to our bridge over Nancy Creek. So just as far as the big picture things that we're looking to do from a non-motorized, it's big, but also getting all those cars away from Hammond. I'm having a difficult time. And again, I know the numbers are run, but just seeing a significant improvement to the trap, because I can see maybe more so in the afternoon leaving the perimeter area, but coming into it, I'm having a difficult time seeing great improvements, because as you mentioned, it's like getting across, people fighting over to get over to Hammond. And it's just, I don't see that for the amount of money that these projects are going to cost. I don't see I believe we need to do something, but you know, and I also feel that, you know, with everything that GDOT's doing in the area, there's got to be a way that we can incorporate some improvement as part of that. So is when you were talking about the DDI, that intersection is going to remain DDI, right? When you say degraded, it's just that it's no longer.
It can't handle the traffic anymore. Yeah. And because even with the managed lanes, the projection is that the traffic will increase on Ashford Dunwoody, you know, long term. I mean, one thing that will help with the getting over to Perimeter Center Parkway is that at least there if they go through with the managed lane project, there will be a managed lane exit at Perimeter Center Parkway. So, you know, people that want to get in the toll lane, there will be another option to get to Perimeter Center Parkway. But, I lost track. You had another question about, the DDI. Yes, we looked at converting it back to a traditional intersection or interchange with some additional improvements, but found that, if you add a lane to the diverging diamond, that would be the best, that would be better than going back to a conventional interchange, even with adding lanes.
Yeah, because even you talked about the managed lane and there being an exit there. And that's true. And a lot of the traffic is from outside of Dunwoody, but the great, one of the great things about the West Side Connector for me as well was it was a great way for people to get from the east side of the city to the perimeter area. Just avoiding a lot of that traffic. So impact for the Dunwoody residents, that was a lot greater as well. So I appreciate the presentation and I'm definitely interested. I agree it's a priority to figure something out here. Have we spoken to Brookhaven at all? Because some of these options go into Brookhaven. Is there any participation on their part? Are they?
We've let them know we're looking at it. We haven't had any real in-depth discussions with them. But the CID, I believe, because one of their board members has property on the south side, so they may have spoken to them about it, but they'll also be talking to them Wednesday about it also.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anything, Rob? Catherine?
Question about adding lanes to a bridge that you anticipate replacing. Is that lost money? Is that just?
Well, that's what GDOT's saying is because we talked about widening the bridge, but they're saying, based on the age, of course, they don't have any plans to replace it right now, but they're saying if you're going to touch it, you probably want to think about going ahead and replacing it. So, I mean, you could widen the bridge without replacing it, but I think they're going to push towards just replacing it.
So in order to get their approval for this is a whole new bridge. Is that what you're saying?
Possibly, yeah. That decision hasn't been made yet, but that looks like where it's headed.
Okay.
But we're gonna say, well, this is your bridge, and then if it needs to be replaced, it needs to be replaced regardless. So help us figure out how to get this done.
Does it have some kind of rating? Do they rate them?
They do.
And you don't know what it is?
I think the rating is adequate, but they're just looking at the age of it. And it's not the whole bridge. It's just the oldest part of the bridge is 60 years old, but I think the rating was adequate.
Right.
Good. It's considered good, better than adequate.
It's considered good. Okay. Well, I do like the separate pedestrian trail bridge. Thanks.
Stacy?
So if we had to replace the entire bridge, would we still do the separate multi-path pedestrian, or would we incorporate it into the?
It could be incorporated into the new bridge if we had to replace the whole thing. I did just, make that bridge a little bit wider.
Yeah, I mean, I will say you look at it and it's a lot, and then I like the way you zoomed in on it. I could understand a little bit more. And yes, I do like the separate bridge for pedestrian bike. I think that's a necessary feature down there.
Joe?
Ditto on the separate bike bridge. Few questions. As Tom alluded to, I talk about Brookhaven, definitely, because I know, for instance, on Ashford Dunwoody, they have a plan to put in a multi-use trail along Ashford Dunwoody too. So, hey, make sure we're connecting with them. Talk about funding. The new federal transportation bill. Don't know, right? Is there any possibility? I just read the highlights of some ways they say, well, they want you to do maintenance and repair first rather than brand new. But this is sort of both, right? If we say, well, we want to just maintain and repair by adding a bridge and then the bike ped, that would be, again, I know that whole thing is in a state of flux with the new federal transportation bill, but are we looking at other funding sources, just how that's developing?
Well, we're starting with GDOT, and then we'll talk to ARC because they make a lot of the decisions on the federal money, but this will definitely have to have federal or state funding to happen. I mean, we're talking if you replace the Ashford Dunwoody Bridge, you're talking 40-something million project. So it's not, I mean, the CID and the city would have to contribute something to it, and the more we could contribute, the more competitive it is. But we would be expecting that this would mostly be funded by other agencies.
Okay, so, and as I said earlier comments, but I was looking at the former West Side Connector, because I see that's so tight with the new on the the Marriott property coming online and stuff. That seemed really tight and very obstructive. And the earlier version where you have the new bridge down there, that's going right into existing developments that could happen. And there's a cemetery there and all sorts of things. I would like a clarification on if we do with the bike ped bridge, because I've heard anecdotally that Georgia DOT says they won't pay for that. So I'd like to, if we do have that as an option, I'd like to see if they're going to have skin in the game and how that funding would be for that, or if they're going to say, oh, that's that 1 penny a gas, the gas tax, Georgia DOT gas tax thing, where there's in the Constitution that goes for roads and bridges only, right?
So one of the challenges is this is almost fiction at this point. Sorry. I mean, it's not fiction, but this is so far away that the state's not going to tell you anything about funding, because we're saying at least 10 years before it's begun. So that, I mean, it's just not, I mean, we couldn't apply for money today because it's not even just not shovel ready. It's just there. I mean, I'm just saying.
We don't want to put something out in the next 24 months to
No,
potentially
this
make
is,
happen.
a lot further away than
Well,
that.
yeah, the next step would be to get a project programmed in the tip.
Right.
And there actually is in the regional transportation plan, there is a long-range project to redo this interchange, but it has no funding tied to it right now. So the next step would be to get it programmed in the tip, even if it's just for design, and then start the design process. But I mean, even if we had the money today, and if we're going to go through the state and the federal process, you're looking at 5 years before you would turn a shovel. So right now, we're just trying to get a concept so that, and we've been talking to GDOT, say, as you're putting together your top end plans, which you want to go out into bid next year, make sure you have it designed to allow for whatever we want to do here.
Right, exactly. And just from a planning perspective, going out 10, 20 plus years, I'd like to see future transportation studies also include if there's transit options and what people may choose to do in the future, because right now it's all about assuming that single occupancy vehicles and motor traffic just continues in an upward matter. If you look at Seattle, there's studies from within the last 5 years where they had a 5% population growth and no increase in traffic because they had a really intensive transit system and they started building it out. So potentially, I'm just saying, if we have a BRT in there in 20 years from now, if we have a circulator shuttle, there may be options. Then we're just talking about, motor vehicle is always going to increase every year. So that's just where I am. Thank you.
Okay, I was trying to pull up the schedule, and the state's website's not very good. But so I have a couple questions. One is, this is well without my wheelhouse and whatever anybody thinks is going to work the best, except for I want to know how BRT is going to fit here with our stop at Perimeter. And second, I really am with Tom on this. And I think the city, because, if there's any way we can figure it out, some creative solution to get that connection point that is that, even, I'm not even going to pretend to tell you how to do that. I'm just going to say, if there's any way, whether it's triple laned or double laned or whatever. And so I pulled it up. Hold on one second. It was where they said it was. Sort of.
You're talking about the direct connection.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that we have to figure, so one of the, I have a couple questions, but one of the things is that BRT is going to have, if assuming it ever happens, it's going to have a stop in Perimeter. In the initial days, because it's going to end, depending on timing, if we start BRT simultaneous to the managed lanes open, the temporary ending of the managed lanes is here, correct? It depends on what the new developer builds, but the current plan is they kind of end in Dunwoody. And so we want it to go to the MARTA station temporarily, potentially permanently, right?
I would say permanent.
Okay, permanently. Okay, so we had to make sure though that all this fits together because the way BRT is most successful is when it's the fastest. So that's just my take on that. The second question I have is traffic studies are great, but we've had this profound disruption. And I'm on Ashford Dunwoody at rush hour in the mornings all the time, and it's getting heavier, but we're nowhere close to where it was before, I don't think. So stop. 285 is totally back to where it was, maybe possibly it's because of the construction worse. But how do we know that this data, I mean, if companies go to 2 or 3 days a week, how do we know that what we really need? And also because I'm masochistic, how many bridges in Georgia are 100 years old, or parts of the bridges that are 80 years old? I mean, aren't there tons? I mean, everything I read on the federal level is we have a crisis. Is that different in Georgia? I've said way too many questions at once. Feel free to just pick and choose.
So the BRT, if the BRT would be in the managed lanes, and as I see it, they would get off at Perimeter Center Parkway. There's going to be an exit there.
Okay.
And then we just have to figure out how to quickly get them up to the Dunwoody MARTA
Okay.
station and then loop right back to get
Right.
on. The bridge question, yeah, there are bridges older. They look at those ratings and they rate them pretty regularly.
But then they rate them pretty regularly, but are they doing much about those ratings?
Yeah, I'd say
Okay.
Georgia's probably better than a lot of states
Okay.
as far as how they're maintaining their roads and bridges. And then I forgot what the other question was.
If any way we can get that connecting point across, I know it's hard, but if there's any creative solution, no matter how pie in the sky, that we could end up with this west connector, right? Tom, that's what we call it,
Something like the original West Side Connector.
just something that we could end up with that would help Dunwoody residents, because just like I talk about the top end lanes, we're not benefiting very much from them. I mean, individuals will, but as a community, they're not going to add much value. And all this is great, the DDI and the 8 lanes or the other new bridge, but most people in Dunwoody probably aren't coming that way. And it's important that Perimeter Center function because it's a very important part of our community. But if we could get that west connector high in the sky, something, certainly we want to, I think we protected our pedestrian ability to have land to do pedestrians, but if we could just figure something out.
Okay. And the other thing was about the traffic projections.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're projecting 20 years out.
Yeah, it's just a
with
guess.
especially now with pandemic, people
Mhm.
working from home, automated vehicles. I
Right.
mean, there's no, I would say what we're showing here should be kind of worst case scenario, because
Okay.
this is assuming that traffic goes somewhat back to what it
They-
was.
Mhm. The latest research on automated vehicles is it potentially could make traffic worse.
Right.
So,
So, I mean, my recommendation would be to plan for the worst.
Right.
And have GDOT plan for the worst,
right.
and
maybe
then
longer.
in 2 or 3 years, or maybe if it's not built, when the managed lanes open, you may, at some point in the future, you can say, well, maybe we don't really need to do this, or we do.
So the purpose of this exercise for you and the PCID, and I presume if the city of Brookhaven is involved or their reps are involved, is to figure out what we need from the 285 managed lane project.
Yes.
But there's no guarantee we get that because they've turned it all over to private developers, correct? Or am I incorrect?
No, for all the indications we've had so far, they will work with us, because what they have to do is pretty minor as far as, they just have to make sure their bridge supports aren't in the way of this bridge, that they have the right clearances. It doesn't have a major impact on their design.
And one of the things that we had pushed for and had received, and then we didn't receive it anymore, was to go ahead and get the extra lane off Chamblee Dunwoody. Does this impact that at all? Or does this presume that happened? So,
The dedicated lanes,
yeah,
from Chamblee Dunwoody to
right,
Ashford Dunwoody.
right.
that's still planned, they're still planning for that to happen, but it's not gonna be that advanced
Right,
project.
which
It's
was a
just gonna be part of
shame,
the
because
big one, yeah.
that was yet another thing that Dunwoody residents would benefit from.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, but this design presumes that happens, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right, Tom, go ahead.
There we go. Okay, thanks. Yeah, as the mayor pointed out, a little bit of, this is a lot of pie in the sky and way down the road. But I think the important part of this exercise at this point in time is for lack of a better term, to call dibs on property there, right? And say, hey, we got a project going here, so please don't build your stuff here. And so looking at, and again, I know I'm looking at a picture and it's far more complicated with topography and angles of ramps and all of that stuff. But it appears that if there's any way that they can shift the exit ramp eastbound off of 285 to Ashford Dunwoody down, because I think the initial plan was obviously before the living spaces furniture was there, and the idea was to kind of tie it into Ravinia Parkway. We don't necessarily need to do that anymore. And I think if they just shift those exit ramps down a little bit, if there's space to do that, it appears, just again, looking at this picture as a layperson and not taking into consideration what might be underground or anything, there might be enough room to get that lane across. And then I don't know if it properly lines up crossing the highway and all of those types of things, but I'd love if you guys could take a look. You may have already looked at that.
Yeah, that was the thought originally, is that we could shift that ramp a little bit south, and that the managed lanes would be going to the north, and that they would already be acquiring property from Ravinia. But what they've done to minimize their right-of-way impact, it's hard to see here, but there's some black lines in that grassed area and some black, those are bridge supports. So the managed lanes are going to go through that grassed area between 285 and the ramp, right through here. It's all elevated, yeah. It'll be up over Ashford Dunwoody.
Okay.
And then same thing on the other side too. So they've pretty much taken up all the room in the right of way.
If I could just throw in one little comment that was mentioned earlier in the sense of a possible, ramp going over Ashford Dunwoody for the West Side connector to sort of still stay in existence. You possibly, let's say earlier in the exit over by Georgetown Swim Tennis or somewhere down the road a little bit, you merge in, one lane could go in and then go up and over. So just one lane going over Ashford Dunwoody, starting somewhere that we have more right of way. If there's more right of way at the top of this picture, start a ramp that would just go over Ashford Dunwoody and go into the West Side connector area. Because again, that still adds a lot of value.
Yeah, if you look, it's hard to see, but where the black line is there, just on the left side of that is a dashed blue line. That's the right of way. So you can see that with this ramp, it's right up against the existing right of way. And so even though Ravinia is not planning anything down in here, and we could maybe get right away there, when you get up to here, they're right up against the.
Well, could a ramp not go over, let's say double deck a ramp over existing traffic that's exiting onto Ashford Dunwoody? Why would we have to go into the property area? I'm sure you need supports. I'm sure there's technical reasons.
Yeah, you'd have to find somewhere to put your supports.
All right, thank you.
But we can keep exploring, right? Maybe sort of.
Yeah.
And also the reality is that the developer of this project could come in and want some changes, right? I mean, that's the way the process has been explained to me. I don't know if anybody else has heard that. They've told me that over and over again at every meeting I've been at. And so we need to pay very close attention, because there could be an opportunity there to influence some of those changes. And so anyway, that's my take on that.
Okay.
Well, all right. So I guess we gave you enough feedback, and we'll hear what PCID says too, and then we'll continue to work on this.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Michael. Big stuff.
Thank
That includes that part of the meeting. Public comments, if anyone is here. 3 minutes, 30 minutes. Nope, nobody's here. We're sorry, city manager comments.
Yes, Mayor, we'll need an executive session for real estate and litigation.
Okay. Council comments. John, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay, Tom, anybody, just raise your hand. Oh, yep.
Unfortunately, the Dunwoody Wildcats fell to West Forsyth,
Ah.
2-3.
Mm.
I know.
I do have a comment now since you raised that.
Yep.
However, the girls tennis team is still in. They won today, so they're on to the state Elite Eight. No
Awesome.
information on when or where that match will be.
Right. Don't know either. Joe? Okay, so I wanted to thank everyone who made Dunwoody Lemonade Days, I hear, a record success. I was away for the weekend. So we always appreciate all our volunteers, and we hear that Barn had a very successful party on Saturday for the Juvenile Diabetes Foundation, and we'll be repeating it in the fall. All is good in Dunwoody. I need a motion for executive session, please.
Move to it.
We move to executive session for purposes of real estate and litigation.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Anybody not? We will return after executive session. Thank you.
The last guy to speak in public comment.
Are you bored, chief, or? Oh. Let's have it. Pick up my phone, you know,
Ready? I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.